Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be here today with my panelists. This session is organized together with DG ENER and is organized around a question. How can Europe best support small and medium-sized enterprises in tackling the challenges of energy efficiency? To do so, I'm here today with these panelists. I will introduce them deeply when I will ask them the first question. Please keep in mind that this question wants to be interactive. We have some people also online, and through Slido, you will be able to ask questions, but then I will redirect to our panelists. Before introducing in detail our speakers, I'm happy to set the scene about this panel. This panel is structured in three parts. In the first part, thanks to Eero from the European Commission, we will talk about the policy framework of energy efficiency. Then we will have Ray Pinto from Digital Europe that will explain to us and guide through which digital technologies and how digital can support energy efficiency. Then, as there's not a silver bullet to solve the energy efficiency problem, we have three interesting speakers that will show from different angles interesting projects that help us to tackle energy efficiency. I will present them later, so not to lose time. Now, I will go through the first presentation. I have here with me Eero from DG ENER. Eero, you advise senior management to tackle the energy transition, and you support them on how to contribute the decarbonization of EU energy. From your position, can you share with us some insights about what the Commission is doing for energy efficiency and more in general for the energy transition?
Sure, Bianca, with great pleasure, and good afternoon, good a bit sweaty afternoon, at least so that's why I'm not wearing my jacket, so it's a bit impolite, but there's a reason. So anyway, thanks for the question, Bianca. Let me start with this, these couple of years that we have behind us, they've been pretty challenging. I think that's the word one can say. For the EU, but also for the SMEs. And obviously the SMEs, they're the engine of Europe, and the economy. So if something is difficult there, so then the whole union has a problem. That's a fact. And what happened was obviously we had the pandemic, which pushed the SMEs to the limit in surviving the situation. And at the same time, you had, of course, the climate problems. They didn't disappear. They were still there and getting actually a bit worse. That's a fact. And then once we're sort of getting out of this, so you know what happened, obviously Russia's unprovoked and brutal invasion of Ukraine, which then plunged us into an energy crisis. And I don't think I need to elaborate, you know all of that. So that's the doom part. So now the bit more positive part is that, okay, EU did react, and I would claim fast. I would say historically fast, considering the challenge. So there was a commitment taken to phase out Russian fossil fuels, and obviously imposing of sanctions on those. And then the important part is to sort of put the second gear in to the clean energy transition. And there we were aiming at ensuring affordability and security of energy in that short-term situation when the crisis was on. And then obviously as well to empower consumers and SMEs in the transition part, which is the future-oriented one. And here we were very much boosting the clean energy transition. That was what we wanted to do. And that was happening then under the Repower EU plan. This was the setting. And I think what we saw happening was that unlike in the past, so now businesses, also consumers, other consumers, had to actually cut down on consumption of energy. And that's directly cut down. And this was done there to sort of safeguard the availability of energy to critical services, hospitals, and the like. And what that meant, simple things, turning down indoor temperatures, driving less, using less air conditioning, and these kinds of things. And that was quite new since the 1917 oil crisis. We haven't really had to really directly cut consumption. And the cities were helping in this. The Covenant of Mayors was or launched what is called the city's energy saving sprint, which was to prepare for the winter voluntary consumption cuts, and that was launched in the connection of the repower. Now, at the same time, obviously, companies made huge efforts, and those of you who you represent here, SMEs, you know better than I do that. So that was a big thing, and I think what we can see today with some data that the results were good. The consumption reduction targets or demand reduction targets were met, even exceeded. But I think, obviously, we're not quite sort of out of the woods yet because there's going to be another winter. And we have to be ready sort of you have to be prepared for it. On the other hand, we are more prepared in terms of all these emergency structures and others. But still, we have to see how it goes. Now, so savings count, direct savings of energy count, but that's not all. So what we are looking at now is structural savings of energy, structural efficiencies, and this is where energy efficiency comes into the picture. So we want to reduce this dependency on energy, particularly fossil, and obviously cut then energy bills because that's what really counts, and then get us towards the climate goals. So all these things together, that's energy efficiency is a tool for that. And how to do that? Okay, it's about structural optimization of the way we use energy. Also, obviously, structurally reducing it, that's clear. And there it's about, stopping waste, because there is still wasteful use. And also sort of tapping to the potential which is there for energy efficiency. It's huge. It's also in the SMEs. It's everywhere. So we need to work on that. And the whole point of this is, of course, that this will help make, if we look at SMEs, so it'll actually make the SMEs more competitive in the long run. So there's a benefit also this way. And more resilient to a next possible crisis, whatever that's going to be. So now, a word on legislation. We are pretty much ready with the recast of the Energy Efficiency Directive. And there was a political agreement on that in March, and now we should have the paper out and officially out in July. That's what we expect. And what's the ED doing? Well, among other things, it brings a tougher efficiency target. It's like about 10% more than the target we had back in 2018. So to give you the difference. And then there's also a lot of work on the funding of this on the finance side. So there is cohesion policy, there are recovery funds, and others which are there to help deliver this, the Fit for 55 package and the Recover addition to it. So all this, so that's where the big money is. So this is, of course, what we want the member states to use wisely. And then it's not just the Energy Efficiency Directive. We have also the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which is obviously about buildings. This is still under negotiation, but it has very similar goals on working on the energy performance, of course. And I'm going to check if I had put... just a second. I lost my thoughts now. This is what happens sometimes. Anyway, so the main point is you have the energy efficiency requirements, which are there, and the gradual improvement of the performance of the buildings. So you go from new buildings towards existing public buildings, and finally, 2030, you go into the residential buildings. So here we are raising the energy performance levels, from G to F and F to E, and this way. So little by little, because renovation is the big and, super important part of this whole work.
Iiro, I will have to.
And I think I'm pretty much there. I just want to say maybe the word about energy audits, because that's also connected here. So energy audit is super important because there
we will talk about that.
But we'll get back to it later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will be now happy to ask so many questions to Ray, because Ray Pinto from Digital Europe, he has been working for more than 20 years in Brussels. And yesterday, he had a full session on digitalization and how it can support energy transition. So now you're here with us, and I would be really happy to get a bit the gist of what we discussed yesterday, the main takeaways, how can digitalization actually help energy efficiency.
Great, thank you very much. And to do that, I just have a couple of slides. You might have seen it yesterday if you were at that first panel, if we just can pop them up. And basically, digital is going to provide a lot of opportunities for SME. I mean, that's something that I have to be very clear on. What is Digital Europe, right? Digital Europe is a trade association. We have 41 national trade associations, and we have many companies, not just digital companies, but also many of the transforming industries across many different sectors. And if you look at all the members of our trade associations, we're about 45,000 SMEs. Looking at something that we've done, and this report is up on our website, we are now having discussions on what is that platform that SMEs can use, grow, and develop technologies. Technologies that will drive energy efficiency, but that will also make Europe more independent, more resilient, and more sustainable. And a lot of this, right, doesn't mean that Europe has to do it by itself, right? It means that internationally we can cooperate and get these technologies to grow and get these companies to be, global quickly. And I think that's a very important part of this discussion. But what will that need? What will that actually need? Right? We need 4 different accelerators that we identified. So. It's really small print over there, and I can't do it from memory, but it is data cooperation, right? You need data to move around quite quickly. It has to be accessible. I'll be talking later on about how these SMEs use these data. They plug it in sensors and buildings. It produces millions, if not billions, of data points that train AI, that makes the AI really smart, and then you have these great solutions that you can sell as an SME and develop, right? And I'll talk about that later. You need connectivity. We are moving quicker, hopefully, to get these 5G, maybe future 6G, other internet technologies all across Europe. That's important. And we need investment, as we heard right now, and we need more of the enabling regulations, right? And that makes that all happen. These technologies that can move quickly in Europe, they include cloud, IoT, edge control, machine learning, AI. That will move very fast in the EU. That's what we've identified. And we've also identified that there are some really important applications that you're going to be seeing a lot of SMEs in this ecosystem developing, right? Digital twins. There's going to be more solutions to measure, make energy efficiency, create flexibility in grids, as well as enabling the end users. So here is a very complicated slide. I went through it yesterday. It lists all the different challenges, and they are many. So it's not going to be an easy road. I think the SMEs are going to help to solve some of these, but the SMEs are also going to face many of these challenges. It is very difficult to get data to move across the EU. The single market theoretically doesn't really exist for digital. There is far too much fragmentation between member states, and that fragmentation is not only virtual, it's also physical when you want to start or move your company across different borders. We have very specific KPIs that we developed. There's about 10 of them. They ask for a gigabit connectivity, so very fast internet by 2025. We have these national energy and climate plans. Let's make sure 25% of digital is built into them. I know that's a challenge for those of you in the member states, because you're like, digital, what does that mean? Come talk to us. We'll show you the way. But 25% of those plans have to be digital. And that doesn't mean you turn into a PDF and post it, okay? All right. And then it also means the 170 billion that is needed to the digital transformation. Well, let's get 30% of that spent and get those projects up and running, because that's what's going to feed the SMEs and the growth and that platform. And I think this is a slide of some examples. I'm going to skip through this because I'll talk about it later. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. I know I'm going to get a whole bunch of questions, so hopefully from you as well, and I can answer them.
Thank you, Ray. It was really interesting, and I would be happy to take any question from the public. But while we wait, if there are any questions, I get a question immediately that popped in my mind. Can you give me an example of actually what a digital technology, which type of digital technologies in the field, for example, of artificial intelligence could be of help to SMEs? And how can they get to these technologies? Because it's not just that the technology exists, but how can we create a link between the provider of digital technologies and the SMEs?
Yeah, okay, that's a very good question. I think to answer this question, we got to pop and destroy one fallacy, and I said this yesterday. We don't have to sit around and wait for some magical app or technology to be built. They exist, the platforms exist, the technologies exist. I'll give you a very good example. There is a SME based here in Belgium. They're called Delta Q. And I think the EU institutions got to open up their buildings, because this building is definitely not sustainable, as I'm getting a lot of pain in my eyes from the light. And we can just pop in sensors in these rooms that measure temperature, measures movement, it measures light, it measures many different things. These sensors are super cheap. They pump out billions of data points. These data points make buildings speak. We understand the language of buildings. What do we find out? I bet you if we did that to this building, we'll find out big areas on the many different floors of this building that are not even used. Probably hasn't seen a human for 6 months, right? That's pumping HVAC, air conditioning, lighting. Shut it off. You get predictive maintenance into different areas as well. SMEs go, they sell these solutions, they take the data, it's AI that analyzes it and feeds back on a dashboard where people can say, oh my God, I'm wasting so much money here. So that's just one, very simple example. There's others that help smart cities, right? Yeah,
I think we will be happy to delve into this other example in the second part of the discussion. So I just have a quick follow-up question for Eero, if he wants to reply. You talk about a lot of different things, and also now Ray talks about some finances. I would like to ask you, in your presentation, you didn't cover, for the sake of time, some financial measure. I was wondering, do we have something concrete that we can tell to the audience when it comes to SME? Where can they also look for finances related to the energy transition and energy efficiency?
Sure. So I think I mentioned just briefly the big honeypots, which are the cohesion funding and then the recovery funds, which obviously that's where the big money is. But obviously, often before you get to that stage, so you have to have a better idea on what you want to do, and that's the issues that often what I hear from SMEs is that they don't have basically the manpower or the time to study these things and to find out, how you could say, because you have to keep the business running. I mean, that's the number one thing. So then we've been looking into this, that, well, what can we do about it? Well, energy audit is a tool for this. So we would just basically, ideally, and not just ideally, actually what we are doing now is we want to make easier for SMEs to get access to good quality energy audits, so that you have a professional who will then basically look at the situation, find the solutions, which make sense, and you present them. So you have the options, you have the payback times, you have all that, and then you can have a look. Okay, well, looks like this would make sense to do this or that thing. So that's one big thing. There's also energy management systems and things like that which are coming. And then maybe just one piece of advice. There's currently LIFE is one of the instruments. So we have calls open under the LIFE 2023. 99 million or something like that. And there are calls which are specifically aimed at companies and SMEs. So that's on now, so you might want to sort of look into that type of option.
Thank you, Eero. Now I'm really happy, after talking a lot about SME, to have the possibility to talk with Sonia. Sonia from Enterprise Europe Network. You're here with us, and I know that you are the chair of the Special Energy Task Force at Enterprise Europe Network. Can you give us some insight about what Enterprise Europe Network is doing? You have in contact with SMEs, how it was in the last 3 years. What can you bring, what can you tell that you have contact on your daily work basis with them?
Okay. So, thank you very much, first of all. The Enterprise Europe Network, I hope that most of you are familiar already with this network of the European Commission. If not, the task of this network is to support SMEs across Europe with all needs they have, targeting internationalization, access to finance, innovation, and so on. Digitalization, sustainability, it all plays a major role in supporting our clients. Within this network, we have several focus groups, technical focus groups. One of them is the so-called sector group Renewable Energy. And we have energy experts in this group from across Europe, and we are supporting our clients in the regions. That's the basic system behind. And during the energy crisis of last year, you mentioned it already in detail, what came up to our companies with the increased energy prices, with the shortages of supply, with the uninterrupted supply chains. We decided that we must join forces and give direct support to our clients in this difficult situation. What we did, we founded the so-called Energy Task Force of the EN. Here working together several colleagues of our network. I think it's the next. I can push the second slide. Where is the? Over there. Oh, don't throw it again. Another water glass falling down.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry for this. Thank you very much. Very kind. Okay. This is the next one here. Yeah, exactly. That's the Energy Task Force. Yeah, sorry, I mentioned this already. So you see several experts from renewable energies, energy-intensive industries, construction, access to finance, and so on, join forces for this Energy Task Force. And we developed several approaches how we can support our companies in this crisis. On the next slide, I will show you what we did first. So we had the impression we need to give them very quickly information how they could lower their energy consumption, looking at all these high energy prices and so on. That somehow it reminded me as well to what you thought about and what you did with DG Energy as well. And what we did together with the Energy Efficiency Network of the German Energy Agency, we published a list. Can you see it here? I'll show it to the screen as well and to all of you. It's a checklist of about, let's say, 120 quick solutions, quick tips and hints for companies, how they can save energy very quickly in their processes, in their office, with heating, with ventilation, and so on. Just a checklist to very quickly get down from the high energy consumption to become more energy saving. And these measures can be done very quickly on their own from the companies, or only with a very low investment of around 1,000 euros, let's say. But most of the things they can do on their own. And the information here is enriched with information on access to finance from European programs and national programs. This is available and free to all of you and to companies you are in contact with. The next step for us was knowing that we are in everyday work with our SMEs across Europe, with our energy companies. We knew that there are so many intelligent solutions already in the network, in Europe existing, that are already in the market, that are free to access, and we felt it's important to show all these existing solutions to energy-intensive industries, to cities, to communal authorities, that were all under pressure, to become more energy-saving, more energy-efficient. And so I'm really proudly to show you the second time today the energy catalog that we had developed. It's from now available, free for all to you as well. And in this catalog, it contains about 75 profiles of intelligent solutions on energy storage, energy generation, energy efficiency in communal authorities, in industry, and so on, and can be taken over directly and immediately. That's the good thing. So the companies can, or cities can immediately, directly use these technologies that are there already. As well as I said already, it's enriched with information on financial funding opportunities. And free for you to access as well. If you're interested in this, please get into contact with the Enterprise Europe Network. I think, as far as I know, if you want to have contact to the EN, there should be a paper on your place. This is with the landing page of the Enterprise Europe Network. And here you can identify the local partners who can give you all this information. Okay, then I'm through with these measures. Yeah, okay, that's what I wanted to mention. Additionally, I said the second time I'm showing this for today because we had this morning a pitching session here in the European Sustainable Energy Week. We took out of this catalogue 17 SMEs with very good and interesting solutions, and we gave them the chance this morning to pitch the solutions in front of potential buyers like cities, communal authorities, industries, other SMEs. And we had a very lively and vital energy pitching session this morning. And yeah, now we are hoping that we get a lot of contacts for our companies with SMEs, with interested buyers. Okay, so another thing I wanted to mention, that's the second thing I would like to highlight, these transition periods as we have at the moment, yeah, with the energy transition that's not necessary for all Europe, for all the companies, the cities. Always direct support of money is very interested as well. And so DG GROW had started the Energy Efficiency Action. We call it always Energy Voucher Call because it's about a voucher system. This is available for companies, and the total amount of the action covers 10 million euros, and it will last for 2 years, and it will start in October this year. Yeah, so at the moment the proposals are under evaluation. One consortium will be formed between EN colleagues, and they will take care of this energy efficiency action in the end. The good thing is that 90% of this 10 million euros should be spent directly as direct financial support to third parties that can help SMEs across Europe on their way to become more energy efficient, energy saving, and so on. And each company will get maximum 10,000 euro. Okay, so these examples, just examples where the vouchers can be used for example, if companies need energy audits, I heard it already, and or other technical consultations, if they want to take over energy efficient technologies in the production lines, or if they need new machinery, more efficient machinery in the company facilities, if they want certificates, and so on. Implement energy management systems. Here we are with the digitalization context again, this is very important. And then you take over renewable energy systems. So these are just a few examples of what can be done with these vouchers. The last slide is here about the expected results. So we are hoping within this call that at least 900 SMEs across Europe will benefit from this direct financial support. And what we want to reach is via these vouchers that the company makes 5% reduction of the energy consumption possible in the company by this direct financial support and by this help. 20% of the funding should go to energy-intensive industry. That's important for us. And yeah, the SMEs will get direct support by EN sustainability advisors, we call them, in our network to get into this proposal and for the follow-up and so on. Okay. That was the last one, just the contact details if you have some more questions.
Thank you, Sonia. It was really interesting, in particular, to hear about something really concrete and all the projects you're doing to try to support SMEs. We heard about a lot of the word energy audits so far in this conversation, and I would be really happy now to talk with Ivana Ragoli from the Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy. She's an expert of energy efficiency and also about energy audit. And she was the coordinator of an interesting Horizon project that just finished about energy audit. So please, Ivana, tell us about that, and we are in your hands to understand better why energy audits are important for SMEs. Sorry.
With the slide.
Then we need it back again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. I just see myself without the slides, so it's a bit, yeah. Okay, so my role today is actually to tell you a bit about the problems that small and medium enterprises are facing, and then the solutions that we consider from the perspective of the national authorities and from the perspective of associations and the other SMEs that are helping them implementing the audits and the energy efficiency projects. So maybe some of the things are very obvious to you already, but let's just kind of repeat them so that the discussion would be more interesting, so that we can see the solutions together. So first of all, there is a lack of awareness among SMEs on the energy efficiency projects, not because they don't have the knowledge, but because they have so many things to worry about and so many things that are in their cost-benefit the priority, and if they don't have a personnel that is dedicated to energy specifically, or technical person, if they are not dealing with technical stuff in the company, then of course the energy efficiency is not the priority. Then it's the problem of low capital. So not only the low capital for investment, but also the low capital to us as the financing, the private financing, and the security of the private financing in comparison to the companies that have high financial possibilities. They also have, as I said, lack of technical human resources and doubts around actual saving potential. So even if they are not shown very well what they can achieve with energy efficiency related investments, they have certain doubts if energy is not their top cost. There are also challenges from the perspective of national authorities. They don't have adequate support mechanisms. They don't have adequate resources. In many countries in the European Union, there is one person dealing with energy efficiency in the ministry, like covering many topics, and the SMEs are not their priority. Why? Because they have to reach a lot of SMEs for savings that they can achieve with one industry. So sometimes they prioritize a bulk of savings which is easier to achieve. They don't have a guidance or one-stop shops or something to come to SMEs to achieve kind of information, to reach the information in one place. And they're also sometimes not aware on the opportunities that are available. Of course, we did a guidance for the national authorities through our projects, and I can tell you that all of the countries in the European Union have some of these things, but none have everything. So I will show you also what it looks like. So, of course, as said, all of the countries have the funding mechanisms. So they are transferring the funds that have been mentioned for different funding of energy efficiency audits, and also of the projects investments that are deriving from the audits. But then everything else that has been mentioned here is not covered in all the countries. So they, for example, don't have dedicated tools. They don't have best practice examples to show to companies, a kind of benchmarking. 64% have a training and education for example, energy auditors, energy advisors, and similar. So some countries have energy auditors that are professionals working for the companies, but some are doing it eternally inside the companies. So the quality of audit is rather different when you go from country to country. And then, of course, the supporting system for the audits, so checking them, seeing whether they are implementable, is also different going from country to country. Some of the countries have voluntary agreements with companies for energy savings, around 45% of the targeted countries. And some have requirements and regulatory measures even for SMEs, even before the new directive, where some of the SMEs with large consumption will have the obligation of energy audit. Already some countries have included a threshold in the obligation. And some of the countries, 27% of these, have fiscal incentives to companies to invest in energy efficiency. Why am I mentioning this in this way? Because you can see from the numbers that most of the support mechanisms are available, but the communication among the countries and the transfer of knowledge actually seems to be a challenge. Therefore, we tried to create a guidance for national authorities that is based on this. So seeing the problem and then finding the solution among the other countries, not trying to invent the new solution, because most of the solutions already are there. I can tell you about some, for example, about the information towards the companies. There are countries like Ireland that has an e-learning platform for energy audits and energy investments in SMEs, so very, very good example. Some countries have very firm cooperation between SMEs and regional energy agencies, like in Bavaria, where there is a support system from the regional energy agencies towards the SMEs and so on. So there are situations, there are solutions that could be replicated to other countries also. What we try to focus in our project, and we are focusing also in the follow-up project, are trying to also not help the national authorities, but also help the companies directly. And what we noticed is, as I said in the beginning, sometimes energy efficiency is not the priority to the management, as the savings are not something that will bring in the same amount of money that some other investment will. But when they take into consideration all the additional benefits that are coming from energy efficiency, not in all cases, but in many cases, in many different industries, then they look at it differently. So this is just kind of an overview of the possible multiple benefits that are deriving from investing in energy efficiency in small and medium companies and in also large industries. For example, related to environment, but then of course all of this is transferred to cost-benefit analysis and shown to management that it is part of the savings and it's part of the investment that pays off not only because of energy but all the other things that are related to their business. You can see here some of the examples like better working conditions, so better image of the company, marketing of the company, better performance, better efficiency and production, and so on. So this is all, of course, directly linked to some of the investments or some specific investments. Like very simple examples is how investments in buildings can change the working environment, or how investments in machines or electrification could change the operation of the company, and so on. So this is something that we were also working on, integrating it into the cost-benefit analysis and the business model of the company. You can see it here, just a simple scheme of what we did, trying to start from the business model canvas and end with the business model canvas, but with the energy audit results and the multiple benefits integrated in the business model canvas. We are also happy to say that that our project is having a follow-up. I'm very short in the explanation, so please ask questions. I'm trying to put everything in 5 minutes. Where we are going to we came to the challenge of what happens after the audit is implemented in a small and medium enterprise, even if it's financed by the national authority, even if it's properly done. There is not a huge percentage of companies that follow up with investment. So what we are trying now to do is to help them create the pipeline of the measures that have been identified in the audit, and to try to connect it with available funding. A combination of course, funding that has been mentioned, and of course, private funding, so to help them to reach the financiers. For that, we have a great advisory board, the financial advisory board. We are trying to build a financial advisory board. Some of the members are here. And we are trying to also cooperate a lot with the CINEA. So we are trying to standardize, to help them standardize multiple benefits and their risk investments, so that this step from the audit to the investment would be easier, standardized, and available to the SMEs. So I'm sorry for the fast talking. I just wanted to cover as much as possible.
Thank you, Anna. It was really interesting. And while you were talking, I was thinking that ultimately, it's also a matter of culture, like the culture of companies in understanding that investment in energy efficiency are strategic. And I was thinking like about what Karen Clemens does. It's our last panelist of today. She has been, she's the Deputy CEO of Law. They're giving the pointer for the slides to Karen. She's the Deputy CEO of Law, and she has a big experience in Brussels in running projects. And one of the last projects she's coordinating is the Covenant of Companies, that I understand is a bottom-up initiative, and also has the purpose of creating a community, an environment where companies can exchange also best practices, which to me seems really connected to what Ivana is saying, the effort to create a community and the effort to create a new culture about the importance of energy transition and energy efficiency. Can you tell us about this project, Karen? And then I think there will be a lot of questions about that.
Thank you so much. Yes, the Covenant of Companies is very complementary to a lot of the initiatives that we've discussed today. And that's where the secret, I think, of success lies, that we are working together and that we are sharing our learnings and our experience across organisations, but obviously across member states as well. So I'm just going to try and get these going. Oh, yes. So just in case anyone was in any doubt about why it's important for SMEs to decarbonise, I'll just remind you that they make up 99% of the companies in the European Union, that they contribute to 64% of industrial pollution, and that they are I'd say maybe 40 to 45%, differs slightly, are considered to have a large environmental impact. So there is no net zero without SMEs. And this is why DG Energy has put in place this pilot initiative, the Covenant of Companies, to help encourage companies to step up their contribution towards a clean energy transition. Now, we are in our second year of the pilot initiative. It's an iterative process. We're learning as we go. In the first year, we trialled some technical assistance, which is very similar to some of the assistance that Ivana's been talking about, but also Sonia. This second year, based on research, based on feedback from the companies that we worked with, we have introduced a pledging scheme, which is allied to the assistance and then a recognition of action thereafter. So we have evidence to show that if you commit to take action, you are more likely to actually do something and to follow that action through. So this is what we launched last May. Click and commit on our website, pledge to take action, and whatever type of commitment you make, whatever ambition you have, you then receive technical assistance, peer learning, access to masterclasses, etc., to try and help you take those measures. And depending on how many measures you take, you are rewarded with an entry level or bronze or silver or gold seal of approval. We've talked a lot about what holds companies back. Now, Aero talked about, obviously, the impact of the pandemic. Now, actually, SMEs did better than large companies, but on top of, obviously, that, they proved themselves to be more resilient. But they are very behind, as Ray said, on technological adaptation and adoption of technology. So we need to work with the positives, with their agility and their ability to be nimble, but help them to access the support that they need, because decarbonising your business, and I help run an SME, is a hard thing to do, and we need government support in order to do it, which is why initiatives that we're talking about today are so important. So our offer to the companies that we're talking to is that you can, with an initial investment, you can significantly cut your costs. And that's obviously referencing, again, what Ivana's understood. You can attract new customers, new investors, and we know that early adopters are doing very well on the stock exchange. I know not many SMEs necessarily do trade on the stock exchange, but it is necessary. It is something that is attractive to them. It boosts staff morale. We've talked about that. The technology, a lot of the technology is there, and it just needs to be made more available, more readily available. And all the Green Deal measures are beginning to come on stream from member state to member state. Obviously, it depends, but that's part of the service that we offer. So that we talked about energy audits. Critical to that is also understanding what to do with your energy audit. Once you have the results, what's the action plan? What are you going to do? This is where they need the support. We need to find the companies where they are. We can't expect them to come to us. That's also part of the critical part of working at a local level wherever possible, and in obviously their own language, because most SMEs don't speak English, and that's something that we always need to remember when we're working at an EU level. So the objective that DG Energy has set us, and which is the right one, is that we must be inclusive and reach, that whatever we put in place must reach a critical mass of SMEs because of the urgency and their number. But it also has, whatever we do must be rigorous, and there can be no accusations of greenwashing, because that just devalues the efforts of whatever other companies have already done. So the combination of the two has presented a challenge, and the response that we've come up with is a pyramid system, which allows us to both reach out to as many as possible, because at entry level, we just provide you with information which after a year, you are able to take a decision on what action you want to take. You then move up to bronze level, where you commit to take one action with the help of a national or European existing support programme. Then once you've achieved that, and the reporting is as light touch as possible, it can come from the authority that you're working with or the company itself. You move to the commitment to take more than one measure, silver obviously, and then finally gold, to take all the measures that are available in your sector. So how do we know what those measures are? Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do. And the ultimate objective is to have a comprehensive database of all measures that are available for SMEs across the European Union. And clearly there are going to be gaps, and we're hoping that the transfer of knowledge and learning will help plug those gaps. At gold level, we mustn't forget those SMEs that are striving ahead, that are forging ahead. And there's net zero, who have a net zero ambition. We very much welcome them and will help align them with the SBTI initiative at that stage. So light touch reporting, rigorous because they are measures that are implementing the Green Deal, and inclusive because it's easy to access. And obviously it goes without saying that you can join at any stage in that pyramid. You don't have to start at the bottom and work your way to the top. Finally, local authorities and businesses team up. Well, actually, it's not just the local authorities and businesses, but that's what the partner network that we've put in place allows us to do. It allows us to tap into the local, the regional and the local ecosystems, because we must work with existing, we're not duplicating existing efforts, we're working with existing efforts and raising awareness, signposting, making sure. And I think the lack of awareness is the most prominent obstacle that's facing us at the moment. And so the more people and authorities and energy agencies and business support organisations that we can work with and tap into their networks out on the ground, then the more success we're likely to have. So I think that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karen. I think that now it would be really interesting to get a couple of questions from the audience on the last three presentations before opening the discussion to all the panelists. I'm wondering if there are any questions from the audience. I don't see them in my screen. There's one. Okay. I can read the question. Should we not ask more than audits and doing some measures? In contrast, building and strict rules, e-certification, stream, comp, air, designs are free. Is there anyone of the panelists that want to reply to this question?
I can give just a generic answer regarding SMEs, but then if there are details from the side of the policy makers, then it is also no. So the research shows that this will not help. In the case of the large companies, the obligation already exists, and this obligation has been spread to the companies that are small or medium but have a higher energy consumption. So this makes sense. But with all this that we've mentioned today, like all the burdens that are there to the SMEs regarding the lack of people that are working there, the lack of focus on the energy, the crisis they've been through and so on, putting it as an obligation will not make them invest furthermore. Like we will not have the same goals as when creating all the supportive measures that have been mentioned during the conversation today, and probably will be during the discussion.
Thank you so much. Gauri?
Yeah, I'd like to agree with you. I think that putting that in a contractual agreement when it already exists in many other different regulatory areas. And in fact, we have these global sustainability goals as well. So I think there is enough of these drivers that make, and this is a point that was raised yesterday that surprised me, is that people are buying these solutions not because they're trying to save money or which I thought would be the most obvious answer. But it was because they see that there is a need to meet either some regulatory goal or they want to do it because it's just the right thing to do. So, you know, what does that mean then for an SME? And I think this is the key driver for these SMEs to be able to sell and then grow, right? They have to find out, how can we automate that? And I think when we think about automation, we should think about it in 3 different ways, right? It will be inexpensive to implement. It'll be plug and play. It'll be interoperable. And it just allows to drive convenience, essentially. Right? It becomes a lot easier for the companies to be able to track their supply chains, to do their auditing, to measure their energy consumption and drive it down, to see what the buildings are doing. So I think that those are more stronger drivers than creating things that are more obligations in contracts.
Thank you, Ray. I want to check if there's another question from the audience. Okay, I will read. 900 SMEs are a very small fraction of the total number of SMEs in the EU. Would it not be better to train the trainees for a greater multipliers effect? I think that maybe Sonia could be best positioned to reply to this question.
Yeah, Sonia and perhaps Alberto from... Okay, at the moment, 900 is the figure of at least. We were thinking about that every company that gets the direct financial support is getting the full 10,000 euros. Then it would be maximum 900. But some inert measures that they would like to get vouchers for will need less money, and so probably there will be more SMEs potential to be supported by this measure. Yeah, train the trainers for sure is always a good idea. Yeah, Alberto, would like to comment?
No, Sonia, I have maybe a follow-up question to that.
Okay.
I was wondering, in your plan of this energy efficiency action, do you think you will need a big outreach to get the company will come to you? Do you really think you feel there's a market need for that, and like a market? Or you're going to have to look for the companies, the outreach is going to be difficult. How do you plan to do that? Because I understand this can be just the beginning, and then potentially you could scale it up.
Yeah. I mean, the outreach is very much guaranteed, let's say, via the Enterprise Europe network. That's the big advantage of this network. I heard some in your comments that it's a problem to get contact to the small and medium-sized enterprises in the regional, on a local basis, and so on. This is a big advantage of the network because we have in every region across Europe consortia in every area of the country, and they have the close contact to the SMEs in the region. Yeah, that's our main target group. And so via the EN consortia across Europe, this information will be published about this energy efficiency action. Then probably we will have, it's planned to have a kind of advisory board in the framework of this energy efficiency action, where all the companies that are in the single market program that get information about this funding opportunity. And there's the aim that 2% of the money is going to each country in Europe. And if you would realize that there are some countries underrepresented with the applying to this voucher system, then we would start some extra efforts, let's say, in promotion, in informing the companies about this. So I think, and we are working very much with local stakeholders as well, with energy clusters in the region, with other stakeholders, business parks, and so on. I think we would get a very good outreach to inform companies about this. And I'm with you. I hope that it become a next version probably afterwards.
It's interesting because I think that like for companies like represented by Digital Europe, if we don't have the demand, the supply then is going to work less. So I think that it's important to push for demand of this digital solution or energy solution through this energy audit. I have a question for the demand side. You have so many companies part of the network. What are the success key? Do you have some element that you observed in the companies that are successful among your network? Are they really connected in the territories, like as they said, because it's important, the local dimension? Is there something that you could point out in 3 words that is a sort of 3 words, okay, like in short?
Okay. Look, I think if I do it in 3 words, first would be cooperation, right? They can't do it alone. They live on a platform. They sit on top of a pyramid, but underneath them are international companies right, that are creating these digital technologies, the data centers and everything else. So you need that. And you need to have some kind of international element where they can stay in Europe, right, and grow internationally. Unfortunately, they have to leave Europe to grow internationally. So those that can do that, which means the single market must work. And if the single market can work and they can set up and move anywhere in a 500 million, I guess, consumer market, well, yeah, they can outpace anybody. So I think that's a second one. And then I think the third bit is that it goes back to my earlier point, right? The inexpensive, interoperable, plug and play automation. Those that can do something that anyone looks at and they're like, wow, okay, your product can do that, well, I'm going to buy it. So, and I think a lot of, and that's the best thing about digital, right? It's like a light switch. You flip the light switch, you don't know how it works behind, right? So these technologies now do that, right? The AI, the data, everything on that, you know, bottom part, all these data centers and international companies supporting that little SMA, right? You don't know what happens underneath, but it works. So that's the other.
Thank you, Ray. I will ask if there's another question for the audience. Do you think research centers have a role in supporting SME in clean energy transition? What would that be? If there's someone from the panel that wants to take this question about the importance of a center of excellence. Eero and Ray, okay.
Yeah, I can start. So I think research center, it's a bit of a broad concept. So, but what I would see clearly is that research center, that by the name of it, so it already tells you that this is where you have knowledge, and that can also be knowledge that is maybe a bit of a cheaper price if you compare it with contacting a consultant or something like that. So I just see that this is happening with small municipalities often, that they do not have the budgets that Paris or London or these kinds of cities have. So they rely a lot about on universities, actually, academia, and indeed these kinds of research centers, also energy agencies, which is not exactly the same, but that helps. That certainly helps. It's like one part of that. But okay, maybe if you want to.
I think because we do work with research centers in EU-funded projects, thank you very much. And what we've been seeing, like the Fraunhofers of the world, what they do is they work with international communities, they help with the standardization, right? So that will help with deployment. So that's the first really simple thing. The other thing is that there are some very technical, difficult regulatory pieces, like the digital product passport. I won't go into what it does, but they are actually rolling it out to these institutes to create a roadmap on how that would work. So if it works there, then you don't need a regulation, right, except to harmonize and not mandate. So I think in those two areas, just off the top of my head, they're invaluable.
Thank you so much, Ray. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it made me think of, we have the building passport, by the way, related to the legislation that we were discussing earlier, and the smart readiness indicators. I mean, these kinds of things which are related to buildings particularly, and they're quite interesting. I mean, I just saw some of the, let's say, early adopters who started to build in this kind of information or like data systems into the building management. And so you hear the data that comes out of there, which is then visible for the people who are working or living in these buildings. So it triggers action. It's just that the knowledge and the easy knowledge, it triggers action. And it can, the most like simple ones already was when we were discussing smart metering, and this was earlier rounds of electricity legislation that I worked on then, and the introduction of dynamic electricity contracts. So now this is a right for everyone. Although living in Brussels, I have nobody to go and get that from. But I mean, it'll come. So the simple thing is that, okay, you have these little elements which are often technical. So smart meter, dynamic contract, which makes you the possibility to use demand response or flexibility, which companies are doing. I mean, the bigger ones are doing that because they know, I mean, you gain enormous amounts of money when you shift with your energy use, when according to the price which goes up and down every 15 minutes. So you can make a lot of money. Consumers, SMEs, do that less, obviously because there's just not, people just don't know about these things because it's been a thing of the Nordics and a couple of countries in Europe. And it's funny. I mean, my mother and father live in a house in Helsinki. They are 90 and 91 years old, and they do demand response. So they install now heat pump, and they have solar panels, and they have a demand response system which is based on dynamic pricing and automatized demand response system. Costs have gone down. I mean, they have saved like enormous amounts. And these are pensioners. They are not, they don't know much about this. And they do not need to know, but just that they have this possibility. And I would love to have that possibility here. But I still don't. I mean, because Brussels region and Belgium has not done this. But I'm not pointing any fingers. No. I love this place otherwise, but...
And are we doing something at the European Commission to foster like the enablers to run these technologies? I don't know, for example, increase data sharing, as you said, or like increase the skills. Is there something, I mean, I remember that this September, the digitalization of the Energy Action Plan was published by the Commission with exactly this element into it. So how can we digitalize more? What are the enabling factors? And I remember that access to data, increased data, skills are two elements. Is this into an implementation phase, and we will know more?
Yeah, that was one pretty important piece of work. And I'm not expert enough to go and say how well it's been, progressing. I should talk to my colleagues, actually. Yeah? Those are diving into, or maybe Ray, but it just connects to a discussion again in the energy market about data. The kind of thing that there are some countries which just set up data hubs where they put basically consumption data. So like my consumption data, my profile is in this hub. So if I want to change contracts and look for better deals, including then aggregation, demand response, and all these kinds of things, so I can say to competing companies that, okay, you can get access to my data there. They do the simulation, they do the offers, and this way it works much faster. And so it starts to happen instead of the old-fashioned way that you have a provider who provides you with electricity, for instance, and they keep you as a customer. Competitor wants to give you an offer, it's going to be very difficult for them to get the minimum data to do you an offer, because obviously there's an incumbent who wants to, keep you. So we saw how this access to data made an enormous difference in the level of basically service offer and all that. So digitalization takes it to another level because it goes to the more, other areas. And anyway, that's where the high value jobs are and where, Europe has to prosper. So
thank you, Euro. I will take the opportunity to get another question from the audience. Oh, we have more than one question. Sorry, I have to. I will read the first. EU seeks to renovate 35 million buildings by 2030. How can SMEs connect to this in a systematic way to drive a systematic renovation, not slow case-by-case project? Is there someone that wants to reply to this question? And feel free, the audience, if you want to pin.
Well, maybe I can start. There's one part of because we're talking about buildings here, I think it was. So going back to those directives of ours, the Performance of Buildings Directive, for instance. So there are a few things which are triggering this kind of action, and one of them is the introduction of these requirement for energy management systems to companies. It doesn't say that you have to be small or medium size. It's really linked to the energy consumption. So it's about like a company that uses more than 85 terajoules of energy in a year. They will need to, install this kind of a management system, and that does then intelligently management of that. If it's smaller consumption levels, then this much talked about energy audit comes into the picture, and so on. So that's a bit like how should I say? It's a bit of like a pushing action, and then what we're doing in terms of, then you go into the finance part. So this is we're doing basically in all possible ways now. So there's grant finance, the kind of things which are, Elena facility is one example of those. I mentioned the life. This is something which is available to companies. Some of them suit, some of them don't, because all these differences. And then lots of technical, like project development assistance facilities. So there we're saying that, okay, we need more than grants. You have to go to financial instruments, and that because the volumes of, indeed, not to do this kind of little case by case, but when you ramp up the volumes, so you need both grants and then financial instruments. And those instruments, they are not like, we need loads of them, because not just the companies, but actually the countries are different. So there's a different setting, market structure and all that. So you cannot use one tool or set of tools in everywhere. So there's a push for this. And there's also what we're trying to get happen is these kinds of technical assistance facilities, not the kind of, just the central ones, like I mentioned, Elena, okay, but local and regional.
Thank you.
That's the thing.
I see that Karen wants to intervene.
No, I just wanted to add to what Eero was saying, that it's not just enough to take up these facilities. It's actually, you've got to tell everyone what you're doing, because that's the critical thing. The SMEs are not, the vast majority of them have not done anything yet. They don't know what's available. And you just have to talk about the successes that you've had, the savings that you've made, and where they can do the same. We know that people are motivated by doing the same as their neighbours. We like to copy our peers, and the SME is no different to a consumer in that respect. So you just have to keep telling everyone what you've done. So don't just do it, then go and tell everyone you've done it.
Ray.
Yeah, just I think I want to answer the what we call the DO-AP, right, Digitalization Action Plan, and this question. I think we always look at the Commission. We're like, what are you doing about it? But the thing is that they're doing a lot. And what we need to do, and this is the challenge, is get the member states on board. And there has to be that dialogue with these very large energy companies across that whole ecosystem, the member states, right, to take this on board and drive it. And that is, why it's very difficult, because they're like, well, how that deliver tangible results in the next 3 months? It won't take 3 months. It'll take a while. And so I think when we will want to get that speed somehow from the member states and for them to cooperate, like we saw them cooperate in the COVID situation. I've never seen member states move so quickly, right? For track and tracing on my phone and for passports, and within weeks, right? There was an energy crisis. What happened there, right? So digital should have been first on the agenda. It could have solved the energy crisis. We did this 10 years ago, and we can't just say, okay, energy crisis gone, prices have dropped, let's forget about it. So, and just one more second, if you look at the Energy Performance Building Directive, why did that not pass in, a couple of months? Why are we still sitting here waiting? Will it pass in the Spanish presidency? I don't even know if it's even a priority, and it's low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit that is going to deliver a lot of results. So, as I said yesterday, get on it, right? Make it happen.
Ivana. Thank you, Ray.
Just to add one additional point to it, so it has been mentioned, the benchmarking, the association, cooperation between the associations, the companies, and cooperation with the national authorities. I think important thing that also has been targeted by the Commission with the new life call that has been mentioned is the value chain of companies, because the larger companies in the value chain are for sure be very fond of investing in sustainability and show their position in the market, and they will expect it from the SMEs they are cooperating with. So if we show this message and to the SMEs, they will be aware that their need is to be sustainable to cooperate with the larger players on the field. So this is, I think, also one of the key messages.
If I can, on that, sorry, but actually it's a message that I got from, I met a couple of Silicon Valley companies that you all know. I'm not mentioning the names, but they said, they explained their own climate policy and all that, of course, doing everything, fantastic things, data centers and everything. And then I asked them about their supply chain, and one of them said that, okay, we have set a date. It was 2029 or whatever, and then we just require it. And if they don't, too bad. We are training them, we are training our supply chain, and doing a lot of help. They've been doing a while, and then after that, it's only if you reach a certain level you're in, otherwise you're out. And the other one was, the other company was also very much, they said, we haven't taken the hard decision yet, but I understood it's coming. So, yeah.
Thank you. Sonia, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add something from our experience from the everyday work with the companies. Sorry. We are offering within the Enterprise Europe network so-called assessments, sustainability assessments. Companies are very fond of these assessments at the moment, and they're telling us we are receiving pressure from all sides. The clients are asking, how sustainable are you? The partners in the supply chain are asking, how sustainable are you? What are you doing there? Their own staff is asking, or people that want to join the company, what are you doing with sustainability? And the companies know, normally, they say, normally I'm not under pressure so very much with regulations and so on, but they receive very much pressure from the CEOs, from the big companies, they're working for. So as you all know, they're not so forced at the moment for this reporting and documentation about all the activities. It's more for the bigger companies and for the companies that are in the bourse and so on. But the smaller ones, they receive so much pressure from all sides about all the sustainability topics. So they have very much interest, to change, to identify where they are at the moment, what is the status, what are they doing already, and what they can do and what they have to do. That's a big difference for them. What is good for them, for their partners in the supply chain, for the customers and so on, and what are the reporting and the documentation things they have to deliver in the future. I think this is a very important point either. So there's coming a lot of pressure.
I have a question as a fit that trigger in my mind. Have you seen like a sort of generational change compared, I don't know, to 10 years ago about, I guess that there are also younger entrepreneurs, and like both that you deal with, also Ray, maybe you have clients of a different generation. Do you think that also this trigger to be more energy efficiency, more sustainable, it's not only market need, but also it's a cultural change that companies perceive?
Look, just even looking at my kids, I think they're far more, it's not like we have to do it, they just do it naturally. And they understand, they're almost being automated by the technologies themselves, right? Because they adopt it, they live it, they're born into it. So it changes, their behavior patterns. So I think it's a given. I think we need more, Greta Thunbergs, standing up and voicing their views and demanding the importance of this. But my biggest fear is, and I hate to be, negative Nelly, but my biggest fear is that, all these young people want to motivate. They're so interested in creating their own companies and being the next global companies. But then they look at, oh, what's the requirements for the AI Act that's coming out? Wow, I'm going to have to pay 300,000 euros in legal fees just to be able to do the AI Act. And no bank wants to invest in a startup that has to do all this stuff, that has all this risk, that has all this, requirements. And then the Data Act, it puts IP in a big question. So where do they go, right? They leave Europe. So are we ready to buy all our energy efficiency solutions outside of Europe? That's a question we need to ask. Right? Because young people are going to go over there, wherever they'll go where the money is and where it's easier to create their companies.
Thank you, Ray. Now I will try to find some positivity from Karen. But
go for it.
Well, actually, no, I was going to echo that. Clearly, there's a shift in values and availability of technology, but when it comes to SMEs, cost is always the main driver and is the first driver. So I think we have to bear that in mind.
Thank you. I will take the opportunity to get another question from the audience. If I can see the slide up. Okay. What are the preferred funding mechanism for SME in any stage of collaboration with supporting corporation? Financing at first and then crowdfunding? Okay, I think this is a technical question. Who wants to reply? We don't have a lot of volunteers. I think...
I'm not quite sure what the question is, at what stage of collaboration.
It's okay. Do we have another one, or I will ask? Okay.
Maybe I can try, just to, if I understand it correctly. I think that's not a competition, like between the different alternative financing. There is place for crowdfunding in this kind of situation, so very, let's say, innovative ideas that haven't reached some kind of level of marketing or level of, let's say, getting into the market. But it's not competitive to public finances or to private-public cooperation or to private financing. So I think all of this is an opportunity for an SME and a possibility, depending on the project they are planning to invest in. So some of these things have been mentioned, I think, today. I think all have been covered in this panel.
Thank you. I think that as we are slowly going toward the end, I would like to have a wrap-up round. And my question for the wrap-up is the following. So given that each of you have touched upon various digital tools, policy measures that can support SMEs in their energy efficiency and renewable initiative, I would like for each of you to identify only one tool or policy that you believe could have the most potential. I know it's a really difficult question, but is there really something that you would recommend to the SMEs listening here, and something that could really, clearly, there's not a silver bullet, as I just said, but something that could really contribute? Okay, Ray is the first one that wants to intervene.
Okay, I'll go first. Can I get two?
Fine.
Thank you. All right. The first is something that is just brilliant that the European Commission has done, is the European Green Deal, Green Digital Coalition. So what it is, it has all these big companies, and they're defining the exact methodologies that will measure very specifically the benefits of digital. So that is finally something that, once it's done, they're all going to be coming out in the next couple of months. And you can, go with a lot of trust to customers, say, if you use these solutions, you actually will reduce your energy and CO2. And so that's going to open up so much avenues. SMEs should be looking at that, looking at these methodologies and using it to build their solutions, and then get it off the ground. And then I think the other thing I would say is just connect with your local government, make them understand, right, about digital and how it works. And there's these national energy climate plans, there's RF funding that, member states don't know how to spend it, right? They have 20% digital, like, what is that? Should we just make a really cool government website? So, talk to them, work with your national governments, explain digital, how it works, and there'll be a lot of success.
Go lobby to national governments. Okay. Thank you. Ivana?
From what I've heard from SMEs, I'm not directly on daily basis working with them, but from my work is that they are very burdened with monitoring and evaluation of the things that they're implementing. But on the other side, to be able to create effective policies, you need monitoring, you need evaluation of policies, you need to kind of make better and better policies with this data. So I think this is an answer connecting these two topics of energy efficiency and energy in general and renewables and digitalization is for the national authorities to simplify and to digitalize the collection of data, but not to collect less data. So this is kind of one of my important points. And the other one, I think, the solution from the side of the national authorities that are repeated all the time are one-stop shops, or one point of contact, so one place where SMEs could come to every information that they need. And if it's possible that it connects other topics related to SMEs and not only investments in energy efficiency, that would be the best solutions for the SMEs.
Thank you. These are really two good, important points. I'll start from Karen on from Euro.
Go ahead, Karen, I have to think.
Well, I think the covenant of companies is a really good tool, obviously. Yeah. So, no, I totally agree with Ivana about the one-stop shop. The simpler and the better, easier access there is to information and to expertise and to support, the easier it is for SMEs, and that will mean that there's a bigger rollout. We were talking about trying to, get to a critical mass, and one-stop shops would be a huge advantage there.
Can also promote the covenant of companies, where companies need to go. Sonia?
Still thinking, so I'm taking over. I would like to say that Energy in Enterprise Europe network is a very good tool as well, so like Covenant of Mayors. No, this is a kind of one-stop shop as well for companies to reach SMEs and get all kind of information. No, but I just wanted to give a concrete one. I think these assessments that we are offering to our clients is a very good start for many of them. They're not only targeting sustainability, as well digitalization, very important, as well very interesting for companies in innovation management. And I think they give a very good, first of all, overview for companies where they are standing at the moment, what is about digitalization, what does it mean for them, or sustainability, energy, what does it mean where they are, and then we always develop a joint action plan with the companies, what would be the right next steps for them, yeah, and then we can help identify, will you use the energy vouchers, for example, or will it be good for you to get support by other organizations and so on. So we identify what will be the good steps together with them. And so I think these assessments are a very good start for the SMEs, yeah, to identify where to go next to improve their sustainability, energy efficiency, and so on.
Thank you, Sonia.
Okay, I can't escape anymore. This is terrible. So, so many smart things have been said. I would have had the one-stop shop, but okay, it's one thing that is coming up, of course, many times. I've been wondering, the simplicity, because I think simplicity is something, it would have to be something very simple. And thinking about to what extent one could a little bit standardize some really simple steps that a company, particularly a small company, I mean, medium-sized, you can already have quite much more possibility to analyze things, but something that can be done at scale. And then, of course, this is if it's renovation related, for instance, it doesn't have to be complicated. And been wondering, how do you get this information out there? So often when we look at these good practices, we talk about sharing of good practices. Makes sense. And often it's like horizontally between companies or between cities or between whatever. It's horizontal. But what is missing is the vertical there often. And you can say that somewhere there's a great innovation made in some a way of saving energy. Somebody invents it, but this idea is not spreading because it's left for the good practice sharing, like organically in events like this, through the network, which is already more organized and all that, but that's it. Then, but if you get the government to do that as well, so when they see that, okay, there are some good examples somewhere, so that they would add to this spreading of these good practices from their like higher viewpoint, so to say. So then you might get to something. If you have horizontal and vertical, this could work. And there are some examples. I've seen what has happened in ports in Sweden, for instance. There's been great stuff invented, and equally amazing that no other port town has done the same thing. I said, how is it possible? And then I think that this is the reason. Nobody's really doing it. So it's the communication part. Yeah, I mean, we go back to the communication. Yeah.
If there's not any of you that want to react to any other reaction, I will wrap it up. I think I just want to mention that this was a really interesting session, and I have some keywords that I wrote it down while I was listening to you, and I think for me it could be the main takeaways of the discussion. For me, it's like awareness. All of you mentioned that It's the first important thing. SMEs need to be aware. And the second is like cultural change and making SMEs understand that energy efficiency is not a mere logistical element. It's like a strategic dimension of company choices and management. So a sort of trying to understand that this is not like, this is an investment and this is going to bring benefit. Then I wrote it down, coordination and collaboration on all the levels among Commission, national government, among companies, that the success, as Ray said, of successful use cases is good collaboration among big companies, small companies, among networks, and with a local dimension. And then I wrote simplification, because I understand that through digital tools, but also not through digital tools, we need to have reporting obligation, we need to have evaluation of policies, but this needs to be simplified, standardized. Because our companies don't have the time and don't have the resources to go through all these reporting obligations. For me, these were the main takeaways. I don't know if you want to add anything, otherwise it's 5:29, so I think we can close this interesting session. I want to thank you all for your contribution. I really enjoyed your discussion, and I'm looking forward to next year, and maybe before, to have another session. Thank you.